Hi, I'm Dave from Hectors Smokehouse, and today we're going to go through lighting, seasoning and adjusting the temperature on the gateway drum smoker. So welcome back to the channel. Today what I'm going to do is go through some of the basics on the gateway drum. On the previous video I went through some of the main functions of the gateway drum, and you should be able to see a link for that up at the top. But today I'm going to go through some of the basics. So today's video is going to concentrate on different methods of lighting the gateway drum and my preferred method in particular, but I'll also talk about other methods to light the gateway. I'm also going to look at seasoning, and I will actually season this gateway and run it in for the first time. And then the other part I'm going to do is talk about temperature control. And I'm going to do some exercises where I actually look at opening to 6mm, quarter of an inch, half an inch, which is 12mm, and up to 18mm, which is 3/4 of an inch, and seeing what it does to the temperature and the temperature control. Temperature is really important on this. The ideal spot to cook on this is between that 275F and 325F, depending on what you're cooking. But you don't want to be getting anywhere past 450 degrees F. This version of the gateway drum, the paint that's on here, can only really go up to 450F before the paint starts to be damaged, and it's not warranted against that. So you need to keep this below 450. So I'd advise everybody when they first get the gateway drum to start to understand the temperature and not leave it unattended to start with. So hopefully you enjoy the video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, and let's get going. To season the gateway drum, I'm going to use some lumpwood charcoal. I'm going to fill it up around about half full to 2/3. It's a relatively short cook, so I'm only going to be cooking at 2 or 3 hours, so I don't need lots and lots in there. So just around about 2/3, half full, somewhere around there. For seasoning the gateway, I'm going to use some canola spray. You can use other types of oil if you want to, but canola spray works pretty well. You need to make sure you've got a really good coating that goes all around the sides, and also do inside the deflector plate. We're going to be cooking this at around about 350 to 450 degrees F, and that should actually allow it to bake in. I'm going to try and keep it at that temperature for an hour to 2 hours as we're doing it, and this will create like a non-stick sort of surface. I also want to season the deflector plate, so I'm going to covering this side really well. I'm going to flip it over and then actually do the other side as well, so both sides are fully coated with the canola oil, and then we should be able to heat that up and season it well. There are a number of ways that you can light the charcoal in the gateway drum. One is just to use normal fire lighters and just place them at the top, or you can also fill a charcoal chimney and light that and then pour it over the charcoals in the bottom, and then that'll catch fire. My preference to actually light either a Kamado or something like the pit barrel, or even this is to use a weed burner. There should be a link below that you should be able to look at, that'll get it from Amazon. And I use propane in there, or MAP gas, and very simple to use. You can put it over the edge and it can actually reach into the charcoal basket even at that depth, so it's got a really good level of depth on it. And then once you've got it going, you need to be heating up the charcoal in at least one spot for about 45 seconds. Depending on what type of cook you're doing, you can either just do one spot or you can do several spots. In this case, I'm just going to do one spot and heat it up for 45 seconds to a minute, and that's normally enough to get it going. You can then open the exhaust on the top, and you can also open up the air intakes or leave the lid off for a minute and before shutting the temperature down. I then need to spray the actual grill with the canola oil to make sure that's seasoned. I'll do it on one side and then I'll flip it over and do the second side as well. You also need to make sure you do the underside of the lid of the gateway. All under there is bare metal, so make sure you give a good spray all the way around the bottom of that lid and all the edges of the lid as well. For the seasoning process and also to cook on the gateway drum, the top exhaust is open fully. So you do all cooks and then do your adjustments with the temperature by adjusting the air intakes and having either a smaller or a wider gap. For this cook, I'm going to be starting off at around about 6mm, quarter of an inch, and that hopefully is going to get me into that 230-240 range. Okay, so we've been going pretty steady now for nearly an hour, so 50-60 minutes, at around about 6mm or quarter of an inch, and at the moment we're around about 240 degrees F. So what I'll do now is I'm going to crank it up a little bit more. So we're going to move up now from that sort of 6mm or so. We're going to go up to about half an inch. So I reckon that's about 12. Half an inch on the other side as well. So that's about 12mm, half an inch. Let's see where the temperature goes at that temp. So there you go. Probably finger in there. So we're talking 12mm, half an inch, just over half an inch. Let's see where it gets to. Okay, so we've gone another 30 minutes and we're around about 325. So that magical number about 325. The width of the opening is just about half an inch. It's the actual width of my right-handed index finger. Is the perfect match in there. So we're around about 325 and around about half an inch is where we are currently at this moment in time. So what I'm going to do now is we'll start to crank it up a little bit more and move it up to maybe 3/4 of an inch, around about 18mm. So we're going to move it out another 6mm or so now. So I reckon that's about there. I reckon that's about 3/4 of an inch, which is probably about half of the diameter. So it's probably half the diameter, but it's about 18mm or 3/4 of an inch. Let's see what that does from a temperature point of view. So I've given it another half an hour and we're around about 400, 410. You cannot take this above 450. They recommend 450 is absolute maximum you go to. So what that means is really you can't go any more than that 3/4 of an inch, 18mm, or half of the diameter. You don't want to go anywhere further than that. In fact, probably half an inch is as far as I'd want to go, which is about 12mm, which will give you that 300, 325. So that's where I reckon you're best off being, is at that sort of temperature, that 300 to 325, depending on what you're cooking on. But yeah, this is getting a bit warm, so what I'll do now is I'll just take this back down and go back down to my finger width, which is around about 325, and see if it comes down back to the temperature where I want it to be set at. So hopefully you enjoyed that quick run through the gateway drum smoker. What we did today, we went through three things. The first one was looking at how to light the gateway drum, and what I use is a map lighter, map torch, with a weed burner, but you could also use a charcoal basket, a charcoal chimney, if you want to use a chimney. You can also use fire lighters as well if you want to do that. My way, I prefer to leave it inside and I can just use the torch, and it's very simple and easy to do. Secondly, we went through seasoning, just spraying it with that canola oil everywhere, getting up to a 300, 350 for a couple of hours to bake it on that surface and try to create that sort of non-stick type of surface into there. And then finally, we went through temperatures and how to control the temperatures. The most important part of that is making sure you do not take this above 450 degrees F. Because this paint on most of the models can only go to 495 before it starts to damage, and then it's not guaranteed. There are models where you can get 1000 degree F paint, but this isn't one of them. So be very careful with that. And I'd really advise you to do what I did today, which is get used to the temperature controls, understand how you can open and close the vents to make sure you understand the temperature. And make sure, again, at the beginning, you do not leave this alone. Keep near it, keep checking on the temperature, and make sure you don't get near that 450 and above 450. So for me, I'm going to be keeping it to that one finger width. This was my width, which was around about 1/2 inch, and 1/2 inch was giving me about 325. Just a little bit back on that 1/2 inch will be giving me around about 300, and that's where I'll be looking at doing briskets and some of the cooks like that. If you want to look at the brisket cook, I'm doing a hot and fast brisket cook soon, and hopefully the video should be above here, and you should be able to look at that in the next week or two. If you enjoyed this video, this quick run through of the gateway, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel, and that's really important to me. And please also make sure you press the notification bell so you get notifications every time I post a new video. Hope you enjoyed the video and look forward to seeing you on the next one.